We're here to talk about TAVR. It's exciting, as you all can imagine, is that we have a new procedure that is perhaps not as new, but it's new for our community for the last couple of years. TAVR means transcutaneous aortic valve replacement, a minimally invasive way to replace the aortic valve. And it has a lot of excitement. Just think of the difference between having your chest cracked open and spend a week in the hospital versus going home the next day. So here is a computerized animation of a chest where we're focusing on through the heart, and what you see there is the valve opening and closing, and this is an animated representation of a healthy valve. And here now you see a little bit of a green, and it's not just very happy, and it's just sitting there and it's fluttering. And it's a fairly good representation that the valve is not opening in and closing. So we back up, and now I think we will see a representation of potential sites how we can get to this valve. And I will tell you why we prefer one spot, but we do have access points. So if you look at the red, which represents your arteries, and this is the vasculature that we want to get in, and we go backwards. So there is an artery in your leg, and that's the one we use most of the time. And there's also an option that you can go into an artery up in your armpit or at the top of your chest. So here you see the actual catheter with the little valve constrained, like Andreas was said, it's all tightened up in this little tube, which is probably about a 1/6 to an 1/8 of an inch in diameter. And here the valve comes across your sick valve. And we back out, and here the valve, we can go back and forth like I talked about before until we are absolutely happy where we want it to go. And here is a illustration where we're happy. And now you can see inside this cage a happy new valve, what happens to be a pig valve, which is essentially the same bioprosthetic valve that you would get if you had surgery. But here it is in a self-expanding metal cage. Don't worry, this cage is not going to rust. It's actually made of a chromium alloy, and it's not going to set off any metal detectors.
Let me show a model of the transcatheter valve. You see, this is made out of a cage. It is an alloy that can be constricted, can be completely constricted, but this particular metal, which is mainly nitinol, will always want to go back to its original shape. So we can actually, and inside is porcine. It's made out of pericardium of a pig. And this is the exact same type of valve that we use with open heart surgery, except that rather than being on a nitinol struts, it is on a sewing ring that we sew in place. But the point here is that we can actually constrict the valve within a sheath, within a small tube about the size of a magic marker, maybe a little bit smaller. And it's all constricted. We go up the groin, and when it's in the right position, we allow it to flower. We allow it to open up, and it pops out to its normal size. And it's a little bit bigger than the diameter of the native aortic valve. That makes sense? So in other words, we put it in and it fits in snugly, and because the valve is a little bit bigger than the area it's going into, it stays in place.